And adjust your compression dampening. Yes. There's going to be awkward man touching.
She wiggle and jiggle just a little bit.
What's up, people? Today we are back for the King Zero V12 Supercar build with Peyton.
Hey, hey.
And of course myself, but you probably know what that is because the channel's named after me. Anyway, come on back, let's take a look at it. So today is a fun day because we're getting really close to finalizing the basic chassis, which is more than a rolling chassis because it's actually got an engine and everything in it. So obviously you guys have seen this starting from a Boxster basis. It's got the M70 V12 engine from a early 90s BMW, which is super cool. And we're running the radiator in the middle of the car, works well for packaging. And what we're gonna do is we're basically gonna scavenge all the airflow from underneath the car to direct up and out the back. Kind of consideration of how we're making that old prototype concept car work, but actually be somewhat aerodynamic and work as a real car. And in that note, we're not making an exact replica. We're basically taking the inspiration from that original design and basic concept and taking it into a production supercar. So we need to look at all the insane amount of work we've done in the front.
Yeah.
Peyton, what's the biggest pain in the butt for you with this?
Man, biggest pain in the butt was probably welding in all of these tight little areas.
Yeah.
We didn't really leave ourselves.
Ooh, we forgot the welding on that spot right there. Look at right here. We got to get to that.
Right down here?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot, yeah.
Okay.
So,
we forgot.
Who put that one in?
Would be me. I think I said I would do it later.
Hey.
Or I said, hey, do that. I'm going to leave you do that.
Last video, we pointed out my butt bar. So I guess we
your
point
butt
out,
bar.
We point out your
yeah.
little bit thing right there.
So do we want to just dive them in and show what we've done?
Yeah. Let's do it.
So here's the deal, guys. This, of course, used to be a Porsche Boxster, and it's by no means a Porsche Boxster anymore.
At all.
At all.
Yeah.
And the reason we did that is we needed the McPherson suspension with the shocks going up here where it doesn't have an upper A-arm because we needed this room for the cockpit. This car, much like race cars of the past, say 70s and 80s especially, your feet end up right about the leading edge of the front wheel. And I know, everybody in the road goes, that's dangerous if you crash your car. And here, I didn't know that crashing your car was already dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, much like both of the cars that we own, you just don't crash.
You just don't crash.
It's not that hard.
You do know there's going to be like pointy stuff out here, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move beyond that. So the thing of it is, you need the McPherson to have your legs be here like that, and that's why we utilize the Porsche, because Porsche uses McPherson a lot, and it works out perfectly. Right. Now the thing of that is, what's left of the Porsche structure here is like a wet noodle. There's no way it can support itself with what we've got. So the biggest magic here was how we first started was tied in with steel from this mounting point of the lower aluminum subframe that ties in the lower suspension of the car from here to here. And in fact, if you can see this one point, that is the bolt that holds the subframe as well as the pivot point for the front of the lower A-arm assembly, basically. So that's tied in. It also creates this nice plane for your feet to sit on. And we had to take the steering rack and turn it to align it from its original mounts, so it had a steel to bolt on to here very nicely. And we needed that to get these angles somewhat convoluted for what is basically the shortest steering rack in the world right now. And of course, somewhere very rigid to mount these pedals. Underneath the sheet steel here is a square tube, another square tube, and an L-bend piece of iron where the pedals can all bolt down very rigidly. We effectively bolted it down for my height and pushed it about as far forward as you can.
Yeah.
And if you're a bit shorter, you can change it with seat padding as well as adjusting the pedals to be there and then moving the throttle pedal. The other thing, the gas pedal here is from a dune buggy. Okay, which is cool because you can attach different rods to it if you want to come in and take a look. It's a Yamaha, it's a piece of billet. It looks nice. It's got a little lateral G holding thing here. But this is the actuator from the original BMW that we need with the wiring harness, which is nice because it's got this rod that can articulate it that I bent flat. So we'll be putting a tie rod here so the gas pedal can articulate the original Bosch you know, what am I trying to say? The throttle control aspect for the wiring harness. We're going to go with the stock for now. Yeah, we could do standalone. Yeah, we could do individual throttle bodies. Yeah, we could spend $200,000 on the engine and put 14 turbos. But for now, we're going to get it to run and sound nice and build a car.
Yeah, we don't put carts in front of our horses, so.
Right, we're also trying to build this car very reasonably for less than $20,000, which we're well on task to doing.
Yeah.
So the front part has to be strong. You had to get that in place. Done. And the next thing is this part of the structure here is from what was left of the Porsche. But then we had to do all of this sheet metal work to basically tie in what's left of the unibody and create this node. And this node is very important because we could take the round steel tube here and tie it into the frame, which will basically make the chassis stronger in terms of bending like up and down like this. But once you make it bend up and down like this, if you stood up here and bounced on it in such a way, then what would happen is it would flex inward and outward. So that's why this tube has to be tied in, which when I sit in it, I want you to show, that's where my knee, like your legs go just barely over top of that. Then of course you triangulate this node to the center part of this bar, and we go back to finding out why I told Peyton there's no reason to put this tube here at all, it's just in the middle.
And yet, we found it was quite handy for mounting our shifter.
It was quite handy, although it weighed about a metric ton more than we needed to mount the shifter. But we decided to leave it in because if you did hit something or go off-road and there was, who knows, rocks or logs or something like that, it doesn't hurt to have a butt bar right there, safety. Basically, this tube now, it adds a bit of weight, but it's like a Formula One halo is to a driver's head, but this is a halo for our ass.
Arguably more important.
And that's where I do most of my thinking anyway. So I think that's very important. So anyway, that's there, it's staying on. Also, these here painted pieces of steel, this was some original triangulation from the original Porsche. It mounted to something that's no longer there, but we used these stock points from the back of the subframe and then welded them together with this tube so we could have one grade 8 bolt point here in the middle and triangulate the subframe. So we're able to still use that stock. The front of this car is, frankly, a little convoluted, but all the tubing and all the welding and the gusseting is done, textbook, basically.
Yeah, we had an idea of what structure we needed in order to get the strength and the shape that we wanted.
Right.
And as it turns out, to get that, it doesn't look as clean and minimalist as we might like. However, we needed it to accomplish a task, and this does.
Precisely. And I tell you what, Peyton, I'm going to go over something else. Would you get the Sawzall out and ready for our next step while we're doing it? And the thing is, guys, keep in mind, we have a lot of projects going on here. The students are working on their builds, like with the Lycan and such, and then me and Peyton, of course, are building this car. So it makes it very, very difficult for me to show all of the work going on, i.e. impossible, because I have to be doing the work also. So we're getting there, and yeah, time lapse, a lot of good ideas. So thank you guys for watching and being patient with it. Lots more to come. And the other thing is, quite frankly, Peyton and I wanted to bang through this quickly and efficiently so we can get our platform ready, because we really want to start forming that body structure so you can see that. And frankly, get this car done this year in 2020. So that's a really exciting aspect about it. Now, so we started to get the cockpit. That's very important. You got to have it so a driver can actually fit in it. If you guys remember, these are parts of the rear seat from a Volkswagen Corrado, I believe. And I just threw it in here when we first cut up the car to sit in it, and then realized, hey, that's pretty close to what the seats are going to be. So we've been using this as basically our mock-up to figure out the cockpit. The basic cockpit design and where you're going to sit in the thing. So there's that. Let's see, let me grab the steering wheel. Okay, the other thing, you guys, is, so I had this steering wheel from the $8,000 Formula Continental that I bought. That's my car over there, obviously. And this thing's kind of goofy, 80s or 90s. And I like it, it's cool, but I'm not going to put this in my car. It's not round, it's kind of dorky. But I've been using this for mock-up. So what I ordered was, this is one of Momo's steering wheels that would actually be for a proper race car. You can tell because they're small, they're not drilled. And also, in the nature of what I complained about for that Corvette C8, you can actually wrap your hands around quite nicely. It's 10-inch diameter, which for this car is very important because there's no room in the thing. So I'll show you guys how that's going to work. Let's see. You're going to cut that thing, so I should jump in this and show the next part. So it's easier for me to get into this now because there's no bodywork structure on it, but it's going to be a tricky car to get inside. So for right now, let's just get me in here and show you how this is going to work. So frankly, building this car for my height, now what I've done is, it's going to be 2-seat, It's not going to be center seat, but what I've done is I've moved myself slightly past the center line. You favor the driver because the passenger's not doing anything. So you kind of stick them in off to the side to where they're like this, and they're just fine. Who cares if they can see out that well? They'll be strapped in, whatever. So the first thing is, here's the Boxster shifter. It's got a short shift kit in it, and that actually worked out really nicely. Just did some support rods. This is basically a plastic structure, and then I'm going to have to make my own. We're going to take the cables, cut the ends off that attach to this in the rear, and then get longer cables and weld the ends onto it to make it work. So that'll be the interface here. Fortunately, I am skinny. I'm also kind of like got long legs and stuff. The pedal's going to work out really nicely for toe heel shifting, and I also did this in such a way that even though the steering rack is here, I can get my left foot over for left foot braking or getting in here like this if I need. I'll be able to put some high density padding on this after it's finished and painted and all here, and then of course the steering wheel has the quick release. Getting it on there. This is not quick. This isn't. What am I doing wrong? I am a race car driver. Oh, there we go. Okay. So it works out quite well. This is going to require a little bit of doing, so to speak, because I don't love this steering wheel position. But it's a compromise based upon trying to reuse the stock Porsche rack and getting all of the U-joints below this line, because if I brought the steering rack up higher, then you'd have U-joints that would start pushing into your leg, and that's not really acceptable. So I had to compromise somewhat and have it go underneath with these 3 articulating joints. And then this is a piece of exhaust tubing that I took the steering bearings here and welded 2 flanges together that held them, and then welded to the exhaust tubing to create a steering rack. And then I could weld this steel tubing on and bolt it rigidly here. There's some aspects of this steering tube that I'm not in love with. Like if you got in a really horrific wreck, it'd be cool if it broke loose. So I may make bolts that will break loose. So it's just a little added thing that if it really got crumpled up, you wouldn't have a steering rack pinning you in here. And obviously the steering wheel will come off. But the angle of this steering wheel is much like a shifter cart, which will be important for me to be able to work my what am I trying to say? My elbows and not have this kind of crap here. But it'll work out a lot. The shifting position, it's a lot like a lay-down shifter cart. Like if I set up a shifter or sprint cart to go around Mid-Ohio instead of a sprint track, I got a lot of room for my feet and toe healing, and the shifter should be fine. The super cool thing about this is, and Peyton, this is probably a good idea. Why don't you jump in here and let's talk about the suspension, because we're not done with that. So what do we got going on here? What do we got to do?
Yeah, so obviously this is not going to cut it in
this
terms
is
of
floppy garbage.
This is garbage.
Yeah, we left it there just to hold the stuff.
Yeah, and also it hides what we've done so far, which I guess we can now show them. So
you just bend it out of the way.
Just bend it out of the way. These will be our new shock towers.
Yeah, this piece of steel here that's nicely folded and welded and cut out. Peyton just made these, and for a reason. Why don't you grab the old ones and show them why we're not going to use the stock ones? Because obviously we're building a car here. And this is where I'm going to jump out too, and we're going to do some measuring.
Yeah, so these are the stock ones.
Yeah, and that would have been nice. It's graduated, you can slide it, and it's got these big mounts for the stock positions here.
And they're fantastic, and they're well made, and they're perfect. However, they're triangles. And for what we want to do, and where we want to put them, oh, and they're also aluminum.
And tall.
Not weldable. For what we want to do, and where we want to brace it, a triangle really doesn't work that great. A square is a lot better shape for us.
This is also big and tall.
Yeah, and that runs the risk of sticking out of the bodywork as well.
Right, and that's just it. This car is so extreme in terms of its shape. We need this to be as low as possible to the top of the tire for a couple of reasons. One, if it's too high, the windshield's going to come right over this. It'll be in your line of sight if it's too high. And also, if it's too high, you won't be able to get the bodywork down low enough over the tire. Mm-hmm. So that's why we just ditched all that stuff and went with the very top of the shock, which is a circular area, and made our own that are real slender.
Yes.
And then, so why did we make it fold down on the sides? How are we gonna integrate this, Peyton?
So we're running really, really strong tubing from various points on the frame. So from here to here, here, there, and up front down below.
So 4 tubings.
Four
and the
points.
rear facet is going to create a triangle in the rear.
Correct.
More laterally than longitudinally. And the front one will create a triangle that is both lateral and longitudinal planes.
Right.
And then we'll have a trapezoid, which can be made into a triangle effectively on the side. Mm-hmm. So the whole point of that is, you guys, there's going to be a lot of load on this. Most of it's going up and down, but there is a little left to right, back and forth, depending on what's going on. Mm-hmm. So we have to go to the extreme points of the triangle. So if I can bend this back, and we're going to cut this off. 2 of the tubes will come from that steel and go right to this point right here, and the other one approximately here, and then the other one will go from here way down to that tube in the front and be gusseted in up there, and then this one will come to the rear. And then after those tubes are in place, we're going to take probably, what, 20 gauge sheet metal?
Yeah, 20 or 16.
16 might be heavier than we need.
Yeah, I like working with 16.
Well, maybe we'll put the 16 right here for a safety factor with crap going on in the cockpit.
Every time we build something, like we're fabricating a part on this, Casey's like, this should do it. And then me not really knowing a whole lot about this because I haven't done it before, I'm like, man, that seems thin, or man, that doesn't seem like it's big enough. Because I've always erred on the side of, well, I'll just overbuild the absolute heck out of it. And but
I like being like Colin Chapman, but I hate rebuilding stuff. So think of me as like lazy Colin Chapman.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just going to build my Lotus this heavy because I don't want to work on this crap again.
So he reins me in from building things way too heavy. And so a lot of times I'm like, oh, let's use full inch.
And we have overbuilt some things.
Oh, for sure.
A bit, but like there's some places where you can get away with it. Keep in mind, this is also not going to be like a current Le Mans car. We're not building an absolute. This is something we want on the street, want it to last for decades and decades and have a good time. It's still going to end up being light.
Yeah, very.
In an awesome car, but also you want some safety aspects. So when in doubt, sometimes heftier things are better. Sometimes they do nothing but add weight or even make things weaker.
Yeah.
So
and
that's
Casey's been doing a good job of reining me in on that stuff.
Well, that's the practical application, and that's why I'm excited you get to be here, since you want to be like a coach builder, because this is where you get your best experience to be able to start building your own stuff.
Definitely. Yeah.
So why don't we cut those things off and go from there? As a note, guys, before we cut these off, and they're all bent around, the angle of the shock front to rear will be your caster angle. And you said they were like 5 degrees. I was guessing 6.
They're 5 from the factory.
Okay, we'll probably go to 6 and be a little more aggressive. So we're going to run 6 degrees of caster, and then in terms of our negative camber, what we're going to do is we've got the chassis now blocked up at kind of a neutral, middle to slightly high ride height. And that's due to, you can only really get so low without starting to screw up. I hate to use the word geometry because every idiot in the world uses the word geometry to describe suspension, even though they have no idea how it works or what they're talking about. By the way, if you don't know how suspension works, stop using the word geometry to sound smart because it's really annoying. I just tick people off.
Probably.
What's going to mess up the geometry? Do you know what messed up is? No. But I know the word sounds smart. Okay, here we go. So anyway, so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's come down low and look straight on here, Tyler. If you look at this lower control arm, it's about horizontal, slightly coming up. If you start getting extreme where it's way up, you're going to get lots of in and out movement as it goes up and down, and that starts jacking with things. If I can keep this basically horizontal, it's going to act nicely. And right now, the basic lower part of the chassis is held up with 2 2x4s on the flat side and a 3/4 inch steel tube. So that's sort of where we want it to be. So we're going to go 5 or 6 degrees of caster front to rear, and then we're literally going to stand this tire dead upright, 0 camber, right there. Because the camber will change ever so slightly, but we have adjustments for the camber. So we're going to put this dead in the middle, and we're going to stand these tires straight up. And that's how we know that'll be our position. And from there, we'll take a tube from here to here and here to here, and it'll already start locating it. And once you have 3 on, it'll totally locate it and will be good. And then we have to just use good craftsmanship in welding it, having good penetration and good fabrication before we put it in, and that'll be locked in place. So when you guys come back for the video next week, this suspension will be locked in place, this will be painted, and we're going to be getting the engine ready and tuning and doing all those little details and stuff to where we could basically drive it as a psychotic go-kart skateboard.
Yeah, I couldn't describe it better myself. That it's going to be, if we drive it in its current state, once we're done the suspension and we get the engine in, it's going to be a wild, wild ride. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah, and I totally want to do it. Also, you have to remind me to order the 6-point safety harnesses.
Yes.
I keep forgetting that. We need to do that.
Definitely.
As a note, like, I would love to drive it and be a lunatic and do donuts, but at the same time, too, we're trying to get this done rather quickly. So if it makes sense to do that, we'll do it, but we're also not going to put like a month's worth of work in just to drive it as a go-kart to be goofballs when we can be building the body. Because this car is going to come together so quickly over the next month, you know what I mean? It's going to be exciting. And then I'm going to have to build something else. So we're waiting on our English wheel. That's on the way. We got a slip roll coming. It's something you can go like this with, and it turns 2 big rollers, and you can adjust it. So we'll be able to put in our flat panels of steel for each facet of the body and give it a gentle roll, a gentle, perfect, simple curve. And then if we need to give it just a little bit of crowning for a compound curve, that's when we're going to get into doing an English wheel. So I think you guys are going to really enjoy that. So while that's on the way, we're finishing the suspension. We're going to be getting the car as ready as much as possible in the meantime, and then once the tools are here, then we're going to start forming the body. So let's do this, Peyton.
Yeah.
Let's get that out, and I think I'm going to have you or me sit in it, and let's do some measurements to make sure we're going to fit so far. I'm a little concerned about the height of the pedals and how we did it. As a note, the pedals are on a higher angle, a little bit more like a Formula One car or modern Formula cars where your feet are a little higher. In the original car, the steering rack was back here and controlled the back side of the tie rods, which is also how they were easily able to make the steering column and the steering rack articulate like this, which in the original design I think was intended to open and close the windshield, which is really cool, but maybe not ideal to execute. So I kind of erred on the side of making a more robust and safe track car and fixing these things, of which I'll have lever and such to open and close the windshield, and then I have a quick release MoMA steering wheel. But the pedals are a little higher, and I know right now with where your toes will be, it's going to be very close to where the bodywork and the windshield comes over. So I don't expect it to be any more than an inch of clearance from your toes to the end of the windshield. And I do know the design of the windshield terminates right about here. So let's see, what do you got? Let's put them out on the floor so we can measure them.
I hear voices too, but they keep speaking Spanish. I don't know what the heck they're saying.
Just trying to be curious.
Yeah, I got that. Okay. It's my hat, probably.
You're a hefty lad.
I don't even fit in the driver's
Scoot down. Your head's poking up too high.
Scoot down where, man? I got...
How? There's going to be awkward man touching. No. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's not bad.
You got room. We can put cup holders in this and be American.
Cup holders.
Yeah, we need cup holders.
Hell yeah.
Okay, if this is the 1930s, we could put like a decanter and a flask in here. But it's not.
What if
we got smart about not doing things like that.
What if we just don't tell people?
No.
And they're for when you arrive to the festivities.
No, the festivities have things like that. We will be drinking pH balanced water, sir.
What was it you
Get
said?
with the now.
What was it you said last night? Was it...
I don't know. I'm adjusting my suspension dampening. I can't hear you.
When we were all drinking champagne, and
my wife got a promotion.
She did, and it was very awesome. She deserved.
Is what you're gonna say ruin my life and career right now?
No, it was before we started drinking champagne. You were like
champagne. It actually was champagne from the Champagne region of France.
It was. And what was it you said about whiskey or scotch?
Give him whiskey.
Yes, Casey very violently.
What? No.
Was generous.
No.
He demanded that I have whiskey.
The fancy champagne from my wife. Yeah, I demand. I'm like, I wasn't a demand. That was a command.
He commanded that he give me whiskey.
Yes, we were at our home and nowhere near motor vehicles. Okay.
Yes. I'm really happy with the welds on these.
Yeah, that's nice. You did do a good job.
Not to toot my own horn.
You're getting there, man. Okay, so, oh, look at that. Oh, I think there's too much suspension compliance. This is...
She wiggle and jiggle just a little bit.
Get back there.
It's that adjustable
Get
toe.
back there. All right.
Caster.
Hope you guys enjoyed this. Way more is going to start happening. The English wheel's coming. That's going to be fun.
Heck yeah.
Or you're going to watch me shoot blood out of my fingernails by screwing up. Apparently you can do that.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, I guess.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, hope this inspired you guys to build something cool one day, or at least go work on your cool car. And we look forward to see you guys next time.